All right, so you are shopping for a home online and you see this notification that says back on the market, and you may be wondering what's wrong with that home. So, in this episode, we are going to talk about exactly what it means when a home goes back on the market. We'll talk about how you can find out what actually happened to the contract, and then you will know if the home is a good opportunity or if you should be running for the hills and staying the hell away from that place. So, let's do it. Thank you for checking out this podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, you know the drill. Please subscribe to the show and give this video a like if you like it. If you are newer to this podcast, or if you just don't know me very well yet, my name is Marco Randazzo. I live here in Arvada, Colorado. I'm a realtor with 8Z Real Estate. For buying, selling, and investing, there tends to be a lot of unclarity or confusion around the process of like how things actually work. So I'm doing this podcast to provide helpful, clear, practical information so that you have a better understanding about the process and how everything works. I'm very good at what I do. I really like doing it. And honestly, I really like helping people get from where they are to where they want to be. Just a little bit about me really fast. I love my wife, my kiddo, my dog. I love to ski. I love playing ping pong, poker. I play Dungeons and Dragons. I love hardcore and metalcore music. I just started playing pickleball, super fun. And I love the TV show, The Office. So there you go. Let's get into the topic for this episode, back on the market. When I'm working with a buyer, I love when they see a home they like, it's back on the market because it could be a great opportunity. I'm also speaking from experience here because I have bought this place, my current house, and my first place. I bought that one was back on the market. So I've done it twice myself. I'll tell you about how that home and this home worked out later on in this episode. So let's define the term. What does it mean when a home is back on the market? It means the home was listed for sale. Okay. Buyers were circling the home. And then at some point, the sellers accepted an offer. Now the home is under contract. Okay. So now this seller has to sell the home to this buyer, but the buyer can terminate at many points along the contract, depending on how they wrote the contract. So if you're in the MLS and if you're shopping for a home, you need to be on the MLS so you get all the up-to-date information. If you've marked the home as a favorite and it goes under contract, you'll see it's marked as pending. So it goes from green to orange. So the home's under contract. Now they're going to move through this contract phase. Okay, they'll go through the inspection. They'll look at the title work. They'll go through the HOA documents if there's an HOA, go through the appraisal, finalize the loan, and then get to the closing table. But in this example, somewhere along the way, the buyer jumps ship, cancel the contract, they're out. Now, those sellers regather themselves and put the home back on the market. That's what it means. Now, the question is, what happened over here? Like while they're going through the contract, what went wrong? And the alarm bells might be going off in your head.
Warning, warning, warning.
I told you, I love the TV show, The Office. So you do have good cause to be concerned. Okay, if someone else bailed on this home, something's got to be wrong with it. Okay, but the truth is something might be really wrong with that home. But maybe everything's actually fine with that home. So how do you find out what happened? How do you know? The short answer is ask your realtor. They will find out for you. So something obviously happened and the home fell out of contract. You as a buyer need to know why. And your realtor should be able to get you this information very easily from the listing agent. All right, so here are two lists of examples of what might have went wrong, okay? First list is going to be a list of things that could have happened, in which case nothing's actually wrong with that house. And the next list, there's a bigger problem going on. Let's go through a couple of these examples. Buyer might have lost their job and had to cancel because they couldn't get the loan. Maybe the buyer just changed their mind. Maybe the buyer didn't understand the terms of the contract before they wrote the offer, and then after they got under contract, they bailed. Maybe the buyer found out there are covenants in that neighborhood that restrict you from parking your RV on the street. Maybe that was pretty important to the buyer. Like, I'm out. Or maybe during the inspection phase, the next door neighbor's dog got out, scared the kids. Now that kid's scared of the neighborhood. And so the buyer cancels the contract due to the inspection terms being unsatisfactory. Yes, realistically and legally, they can do this. Those are some examples where a home might fall out of contract, go back on the market, even though there's nothing actually wrong with that home itself. Just a different set of circumstances that caused it to fall out of contract. Let's go ahead and look at a list of some examples where there might have been a bigger problem with the home. Maybe the buyer found out the home has some serious foundation issues during inspection, too big to be dealt with, and they terminated. Maybe the buyer found out that the HOA is tied up in litigation. They're in a lawsuit and they didn't want to deal with that forever, so they bailed. Litigation can take a long time for HOAs. Maybe the buyer found out that the home was previously used as a meth lab and they didn't want their kids playing in the basement. Understandably so. Yes, this kind of stuff has happened. So this is a list of things that could have happened that are legitimately something's really wrong with the home. Basically, you have got to find out what happened. So ask your agent to look into it. They can get this information for you. Now, once you know what happened, whatever the case is, you can decide if you even want to go see the house or make an offer on it. It's totally up to you. You got to keep in mind here, the timing is important of when it went back on market. This is interesting because if something happened during the inspection phase, that's probably within the first week or so. But if there's financing problems, that can happen anytime. It might have happened 3 weeks into the contract. So you got to watch the listing date and see okay, this home looks like it's been on the market for 7 days or 21 days. What's wrong with it? But if it went under contract the first weekend, okay, then when it goes back on the market, you kind of got to treat it like it's the first weekend on the market again. Because if you like that home, it's back on the market, maybe nothing's wrong with it. You don't want to wait to book your showing because realistically, they might get multiple offers when it's back on the market. Those buyers who liked it the first time and lost might be back. So my point is, get in there and see it as soon as you can. Now, when you see a home, it's back on market, you tell your realtor to look into it. Okay, they find out, they tell you, you know what happened. Here's where things can get interesting. So the way the information is presented to you as a buyer makes a really big difference. And I'll give you a couple of real world examples of how this could shake out very differently depending on how you as a buyer are presented with this information. Let's use foundation, for example. I'll give you 2 quick side-by-side stories, real world stories that happened to my buyers. All right, I had a buyer under contract for a home in Arvada, and the inspection showed there was some foundation concerns. So whenever this happens, I always recommend that they get the home looked at by a specialist, a structural engineer. I know a very, very good one. So they looked at the home, told the buyer, this home is literally caving in and it's probably going to cost around 75 grand to fix, if it even can be fixed at all. Guess what that buyer did? Took the information, terminated the contract. Peace. Rightfully so. That is pretty much worst case scenario. Later on, we found him a better house, got it closed, worked out great. But let's talk about another example. Had a buyer under contract for a home in Broomfield. The inspection showed some foundation concerns. Sound familiar? I did what I always do. I recommend they hire a structural engineer. They went out, looked at the home, told the buyer, this issue can be solved with this one specific post that needed this reinforcement. And there was an estimate for about $8,000 to get it fixed. Now, this is a very different situation. Okay. By the way, I did negotiate for the seller to pay for that work. Buyer decided to keep the home. My point is, when a problem comes up, especially a big one like the topic of foundation, how it's presented to you as a buyer makes a big difference. Because let's say you know nothing about foundation, okay, and you get your first home under contract and it shows foundation issues. You might just say, foundation concerns? That's some scary shit, okay? I don't want this roof to cave in on me. Not after I move into my first house. I'm out. Nope. And you might just walk away from the contract without actually getting the issue looked at to know what's going on. So in example number 2 of those stories I just told you, if my buyer and I had not been working very closely together to gather as much information as possible in an intelligent way, they might have just walked away from that home and lost it because they were scared over something that was totally fixable. So, all right, 2 other real world examples of my own personal experience about homes back on market. So the first home I bought, it was under contract and then it was back on market. This is before I was in real estate. Called my realtor. I was like, bro, find out what happened. Right away, he found out the buyer had been asking for this laundry list of inspection items, all this little stuff, and couldn't come to terms with the seller. Terminated. Buyer walked away. I was like, cool, let's see it. We saw it right away, made an offer. We got it that day. We ended up getting a credit from the seller, and we went ahead and fixed all the little stuff ourselves. And we've loved the house. It's been great. So that's an example where nothing was wrong with the home, just fell out of contract because the first buyers are being stupid. This home, what I'm in right now, we got this last year. It was under contract before we were even shopping at this price point, and then saw the home was back on the market, called the listing agent, find out what happened, found out the buyer just like changed their mind. They said like the floor plan didn't work for them. It's like some really lame excuse. I was like, okay, whatever, sweet. So we saw it right away. And we were still competing. There was multiple offers when it went back on the market, but worked out and we got it. And this home was incredible, right? See, it's cool, right? This isn't a Zoom background. This is my office. So that's an example of how a home might be back on the market just because someone changed their mind, okay? Nothing wrong with the house. Keep in mind, every buyer is going to write an inspection termination contingency into their contract. I've always written these into my contracts to be competitive, maybe like 5 days. Maybe about a week or so. Regardless, if you read the contract, you'll see that a buyer can terminate due to inspection, basically for any reason at all. There's verbiage in there about weird smells. Like seriously, it's so subjective. It's wild. Basically, a buyer can walk away for any reason during their inspection contingency and get their earnest money back scot-free. They're gone. So got to keep that in mind. Wrapping this all up. Every situation is different. It just depends. Okay, this is very common for homes to go back on market. Today in Arvada, there's 25 homes that went back on market just in this one day. Also today, one of my buyers texted me. There's this home she likes, and it's back on the market for the second time. She's like, I like this home, but it's back on the market for the second time. Like I'm kind of scared. Something's got to be wrong with this home. I told her I will look into it and let you know. I also told her I was recording this podcast today, so good timing. I found out the first time it fell out of contract, it was financing. Nothing wrong with the home. Second time it fell out of contract, it was because the inspection showed there were some roof issues, kind of needed a new roof. The buyer just walked away without even trying to negotiate. Okay. New roof might cost around 10 grand out here, give or take. So like I could probably get her that home and get the seller to pay for the new roof. Like if that's actually the only things that are going on with the home, the only things that are wrong. So all these things are important that you, as a potential buyer, need to know. You deserve to have all the information available to you. Then you can make a decision that's right for you. If you even want to go see the home, if you want to make an offer, it's up to you. So you can't really make these decisions if you don't have clarity on what's actually happening with that specific house and that specific situation. So next time you see a home that you like, it's back on market, it's incredible. It's got that updated kitchen. It's got the cool yard. It's in the neighborhood that you like. But oh shoot, it's back on the market. Before you write it off, simply ask your realtor to look into it, find out what happened, and go from there. All right. Hope this episode has been helpful. This podcast is produced by Super Team Media. I'm your host, Marco Randazzo with 8Z Real Estate. And thank you so much for checking out this episode of the podcast, Sold by Marco.